I didn't even hear the truck. Just a crash of garbage bags hitting my pasture at sunrise. Someone was unloading a dumpster with no shame. I stepped out onto my porch, coffee in hand, still in my flannel pajama pants. And there it was, a mountain of trash right on the edge of my land. Plastic bins, pizza boxes, soggy event flyers, broken chairs. It looked like a full-on party had exploded and they just dumped the remains in my backyard. And standing next to it, clipboard in hand, was Judith Lanes. "Judith," I called out, walking toward the fence. "What is this?" She didn't even look up from her clipboard. "Oh, Sam. Good morning," she chirped. "Don't worry. It's just temporary overflow. We're prepping for the HOA spring gala, and, well, we had to move the garbage out of the way for the catering crew. This is the only flat land available that's, not being used." I blinked. "Judith, this is my land." She finally looked up and gave me that sweet, sticky smile like she was talking to a toddler who didn't know how the world worked. "Well, technically," she said, tapping her pen against her chin, "this patch hasn't been in use for years. It's just weeds and dirt, so we figured you wouldn't mind helping the community. Consider it a contribution." I took a deep breath. My daughter, Grace, was watching from the porch. She was 14, smart as hell, and didn't miss a thing. She could see the twitch in my jaw, the way my fingers curled into fists at my sides. "You didn't ask?" I said slowly. "You didn't call. You didn't even knock on my door. You just dumped trash here like it was empty land." Judith raised a brow. "Oh, come now, Sam. Don't make this a thing. It's one day. We'll have it clear by tomorrow. The community really appreciates your flexibility." She said it like she was giving me an award. Like I should be honored to host the HOA's garbage on my own land. Grace stepped off the porch, arms crossed. "Dad, are they allowed to do that?" I looked at Judith. She didn't answer, just scribbled something on her clipboard and walked away toward her shiny black SUV. No apology, no explanation, just trash in my pasture and tire tracks cutting through the grass. I stood there, staring at the pile, at the broken banner with Pine Creek Proud, half covered in food wrappers, at the trail of oily paper plates leading back toward the road. My land. My dad worked this land. He built the fence. He taught me how to plant in that field and where the ground drained best after rain. That land mattered to us, and she thought it was nothing. That's when the anger really settled in. Not the yelling kind, not the storm up to her door kind. No, this was the quiet kind, the cold, calculating kind, the kind that starts with a plan. Because here's the thing Judith didn't know. I'm not just some guy with a field and a flannel shirt. I used to design entire city layouts. I know permits. I know access codes. I know where things go when no one's watching. And Judith? She was about to learn the hard way what happens when you mess with the wrong neighbor. I turned to Grace and nodded. "Don't worry. She's going to regret this. And she's not just going to apologize. She's going to do it with everyone watching." She raised an eyebrow. "What are you going to do?" I smiled. Roll it right back to her. Every last bag. After Judith drove off like she hadn't just disrespected everything I care about, I sat on the porch for a long time. Didn't even touch my coffee. Just watched the flies gather around the trash heap on the land my father spent 30 years protecting. See this place? It's not just dirt and weeds. It's history. It's home. And yeah, maybe the HOA doesn't see it that way, but they never asked. My dad bought this land when he came back from the Navy. He used to say a man's got two choices in life: build something he loves or watch somebody else tear it down. He built this house with his own two hands, this porch I'm sitting on, this field they just dumped garbage onto. And after he passed, I moved back here to raise Grace, my daughter, where the air was clean and life moved slow. I didn't come back to fight HOA wars. I came back for peace, for healing. After my wife died, I needed someplace quiet, a place to breathe again. So I left my job, my suits, my apartment, and came back here. I spent the last 3 years fixing up the barn, replanting the orchard, and trying to raise Grace the way my dad raised me. Honest, strong, and kind. And now, Now I got HOA trucks tossing trash across the line like I don't even exist. Grace came out later with a bowl of cereal and sat next to me. She looked out at the mess, then glanced up at me. You okay? I nodded slowly. I'm all right. Just thinking. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, You're not going to let them get away with that, right? And just like that, I realized something. It wasn't just about the garbage. It wasn't even about Judith. It was about every person who thinks they can step over someone smaller just because they've got a board title or a clipboard and a little power. It was about teaching Grace what it means to stand your ground, not with yelling or violence, but with calm, smart, unshakable resolve. That's when the pieces started clicking into place. They thought I was just some country guy with a field. But what they didn't know was what I used to do. Before the ranch, before the grief. I was a civil engineer. Worked city planning for nearly 15 years. I designed sewer layouts, access roads, event permit workflows, and land use codes. I know every rule they're supposed to follow and every way they cut corners when they think nobody's watching. And Judith? She wasn't just rude, she was sloppy. Dumping waste on private land? No permit? Yeah, she messed up. Big. But I wasn't going to just go tattling to the county like some outraged neighbor. No, I was going to build something better. I was going to make her pay attention, and I'd do it the way she never expected. I took a sip of my now cold coffee and stood up. All right, I said, let's go check the back fence. Grace followed. Why? I smiled a little, because that's where this story really starts. You ever try to play fair while someone else is rewriting the rules? That's what it felt like over the next few days. See, I didn't go straight to war. I filed a formal complaint first. Calm, proper, everything by the book. Took pictures of the trash pile, dated them, uploaded everything to the HOA's complaint portal. Grace even helped me format it. She said, We'll keep it professional, right? I nodded. Right. Let's give them the chance to do the right thing. Big mistake. The response came 2 days later. Not from an apology or cleanup crew, but from Judith herself. Taped right to my mailbox was a letter in that same chirpy font the HOA uses for newsletters. It read, Dear Mr. Whitaker, your property has been found in violation of Pine Creek Ordinance Section 12, subsections A, C, and E. I didn't even finish reading it before I laughed. Out loud, right there in the driveway. Violations? Me? For what? I'll tell you for what. Unauthorized fencing along the south border. Overgrown vegetation within 12 feet of a roadway. And my favorite, visual obstruction of HOA community signage. They were coming after me. For weeds and a fence that's been there since before Grace was born. I marched straight to the HOA office and asked for Judith. The receptionist gave me that tight smile like she knew something I didn't and said, She's busy right now. So I waited, and after about 20 minutes, Judith came strolling out in heels too high for a neighborhood manager in a scarf like she was headed to a fashion shoot. Oh, Sam, she said with fake surprise. What brings you in? I held up the letter. You really going to play this game? She tilted her head like a curious dog. I'm not playing, Sam. I'm enforcing community standards. You did file a complaint, didn't you? So I reviewed your property. And unfortunately, you're out of compliance. I took a breath. You dumped trash on my land. That's not how I describe it, she said, brushing lint off her sleeve. It was temporary. And your land, Sam, it's just sitting there. It's not zoned for agriculture, not being actively maintained, not on the HOA's registry. I cut her off, because it's not part of the HOA. She smiled. Yet, that word hit me like a punch to the chest. Yet, she leaned in just a bit. Annexation proposals come up every year. If enough residents vote, we could expand HOA jurisdiction. You'd be included officially. Think of all the benefits. I didn't say anything, not because I didn't have words, but because if I opened my mouth right then, I might have said something I'd regret. As I turned to leave, one of the HOA maintenance workers caught my eye. Tall guy, name tag, said Marcus. He waited a second, then followed me outside. Hey, he muttered, glancing around. I probably shouldn't say this, but they're not supposed to be dumping there. I froze. What? He nodded. I helped with the setup. Judith told the driver it was okay, but we all knew that field wasn't HOA land. She just waved it off. I stared at him. Do you have proof? He shook his head. Not directly, but if you pull the event waste permit, you'll see. She filed it for temporary storage on HOA-owned lots only. Yours ain't one. That was the crack in the dam I needed. I thanked him and walked back home, my boots crunching against gravel like I was walking across broken glass. They were trying to drown me in violations, publicly embarrass me, maybe even pressure me into joining their precious HOA just to make it stop. But now I had something they didn't think I'd notice. A mistake. Judith thought she was untouchable, that no one would push back. She was wrong, because now I had a reason. And soon, I'd have a plan. Most folks get mad and yell. Me, I get quiet. And when I get quiet, I start planning. That night, after Grace went to bed, I stayed up in the shed, lights low, laptop humming. I started pulling documents, county records, permit filings, zoning maps. I knew where to look. Spent over a decade designing cities. Roads, trash systems, drainage, water rights. I helped build the rules these people thought they could twist. And guess what? Marcus was right. The HOA had filed their spring gala under a temporary use permit. But it was explicit. Waste disposal had to remain within HOA property lines. No exceptions. No overflow. No community partnerships. Nothing. And they'd signed it. Judith's name was right there, with a date, a clause, and a digital signature. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Not a big smile, just enough to taste it. That was the moment I knew she'd stepped in it. She broke the law to make her life easier. And she did it right in front of someone who reads this stuff for fun. Now, I could have sent the permit straight to the county and let the system eat her alive. But no, that wouldn't do it justice. See, if I was going to take my field back and my dignity, I needed more than legal revenge. I needed public revenge. So I kept digging. Found out the spring gala wasn't just any event. It was their fundraising jewel. Every year, they schmooze donors, brag about green innovation, and hand out those fake marble awards to each other. And this year, they were going big. Bigger tents, full catering, press coverage, even a local councilman stopping by for a photo op. All of it happening on the community lawn just 2 streets over. And the best part? The main gate, the only vehicle access point to the lawn, was barely wide enough for one small trailer. Just wide enough to squeeze through, if you were careful. That's when the idea really started to take shape. I opened a new browser tab and searched. Roll-off trash trailer rental, no questions asked. 30 minutes later, I had a reservation. Old beat-up hauler, rusty in the back, 14 feet long, double axle, with a hydraulic dump feature and a canvas tarp cover. Oh, it was ugly. Perfectly ugly. I spent the next 2 days collecting evidence. Drone shots of the garbage pile, photos of Judith walking away from the site, timestamps, her memo from the HOA newsletter that claimed they were zero waste compliant. She lied, and I had it all. Then I called Marcus. You still want to help? I asked. He hesitated. This about the trailer you just rented? I laughed. So you've heard. He chuckled. You got a plan? Oh yeah, I said. And I saved you the best part. You get to drive. We met that night behind a feed store and practiced backing the trailer through cones. Took us a few tries, but by midnight, we had it down to an art form. Grace found out, of course. Teenagers always know when you're up to something. You're not actually going to dump the trash at their party, are you? I raised an eyebrow. Why? You think that's too much? She smiled. I think it's just enough. The next day, I printed the permit violation and laminated it. Yeah, laminated. If I was going to crash their stage, I wanted it to shine in the spotlight. I also called a reporter I used to know, small local outlet. Told him he might want to cover the gala. And bring a camera. Everything was lining up, just like the old days. Back when I'd walk city blocks with a clipboard and map out entire event flows, figuring out where the backup generators went, where the emergency exits were, how many trash bins per capita. Funny how those boring little details become weapons in the right hands. Judith had no idea what was coming, and she'd never see it rolling in. Judith always started her speeches the same way. "Good evening, neighbors. What a beautiful day for Pine Creek." And that night, she had a stage. They'd set up white tents with gold trim, soft jazz playing from a Bluetooth speaker, and little glasses of pink lemonade no one actually drank. Everyone was dressed up. HOA board members, local donors, even a county rep was there, smiling, for photos like this was a red carpet event. And right in the middle of it all, there she was. Judith, hair perfectly curled, scarf flowing in the breeze, and a microphone in her hand. She stood under a big banner that said, "Pine Creek Spring Gala. Sustainability, community, excellence." Yeah, sustainability. I sat in the truck with Marcus at the wheel, just outside the side gate. Engine running, trailer covered, everything timed. I looked at him. "You ready?" He grinned. "I've been waiting all week." I clicked the walkie. Grace's voice crackled through. They just started speeches. "Now's your window." We rolled forward slowly. The gate opened just enough. I hopped out and walked alongside the trailer like it was an armored convoy. People started turning as we pulled in. Frowns. Confusion. Someone dropped a canopy. Judith paused mid-sentence. "And thanks to your support, Pine Creek continues to lead the region in clean community living." Then she saw us, and her face cracked. "Excuse me," she snapped into the mic. "You can't? This area is closed to vehicles." I stepped up onto the small riser, right next to the speaker, held up the laminated permit in one hand and the drone photos in the other. "Actually," I said calmly, "this is exactly where this belongs." Marcus hit the release. Krrrr clank. The back of the trailer dropped open, and trash tumbled out like a wave. Bags bursting, flyers fluttering. A whole week's worth of HOA garbage sliding across the event carpet like it was a parade float from hell. Gasps, shouts. Phones came out. The smell hit a second later. Judith stepped back, hand over her mouth. "This is illegal," she barked. "Ew, you're ruining everything." I turned to the crowd and raised my voice. For those wondering, this trash didn't come from me. It came from the HOA, and it was dumped, without permission, on my private land. I pointed to the permit, signed by Judith Lanes herself. Clearly states all waste must remain on HOA-owned property, which mine is not. Murmurs rose. The county rep squinted at the paper, his face twisting. Someone whispered, "Is that true?" Another voice said, "She lied about where they stored the trash." I held up the drone shot. "This was taken 3 days ago. That's my fence line. That's their trash. This is their hypocrisy." Judith lunged forward. "You've made your point. Now leave." I turned to her, slow and cool. "Judith, this is your mess. I'm just bringing it home." And then, the icing on the cake. Marcus pulled out a speaker from the truck bed. "Hit play. Recordings." Her voice. From earlier HOA meeting. Talking about moving overflow trash to the Whitaker pasture because it was just dead space. Gasps again. And then silence. Awkward. Long, glorious silence. Judith froze. Her face went white. Then someone clapped. One clap. Then another. Then a small ripple of applause as the crowd backed away from the stage and left her standing in a circle of her own lies and empty plastic cups. We rolled the trailer out as smooth as we came in. Grace met us at the end of the block, arms crossed, smiling. That was epic. I smiled. "Told you I had a plan." Marcus laughed. "Best party I've ever crashed." As we drove off, Judith was still standing there, ankle deep in garbage, mic dangling from one hand. And all I could think was, poetic. I woke up the next morning to 12 text messages. 1 from Marcus, 2 from neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months, and 1 from a local news station asking if I'd be available for an on-camera statement. Yeah, that trash dump? It didn't just go viral. It detonated. Clips from the gala were already all over the internet. Someone had titled their video, HOA queen gets a garbage coronation. It had 18,000 views in 6 hours. Another one said, man rolls truth bomb into HOA gala. Crowd turns on her live. Even Grace sent me a TikTok of someone remixing Judith's speech with fart sounds and slow-motion trash bags flying through the air. I wasn't proud of that one. Okay, maybe just a little. But the real fallout? That came from the county. Around noon, I got a call from a woman named Karen, no joke, who worked in the Environmental Code Enforcement Office. Mr. Whitaker, she said, we reviewed the footage and the permits. You're not in trouble, but Ms. Lanes might be. Might be? By the end of the day, she was under formal investigation for environmental code violations, improper use of community funds, and making a false declaration on a government document. Apparently, using HOA funds to rent a private trash truck without board approval? That's a big no-no, especially when it ends up on land you don't own. But it didn't stop there. Residents started talking loudly. Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd burned. People started posting about fines they'd gotten for things like mismatched flower pots or having non-regulation mailbox flags. One guy shared how Judith threatened to have his dog removed for being too enthusiastic during morning walks. By sunset, a petition to remove the entire HOA board had over 200 signatures. And Judith? She didn't say a word. Not online. Not in public. Not even in the Pine Creek group chat, which she usually spammed with sunrise selfies and motivational quotes. The next time I saw her was 2 days later. She was alone in the HOA office, wearing sunglasses indoors, packing file boxes into the back of her SUV. I didn't gloat, didn't say a thing, just walked by slow and tipped my hat. She froze, didn't look at me, just stood there like a statue. Because the truth is, Judith wasn't just embarrassed. She was finished. Her little kingdom? Gone. Her power? Shredded and scattered like the garbage she once left in my field. And I didn't need a speech, or revenge fantasies, or applause. I already had what I wanted. Peace. A week later, the trash was gone. Not just from my field, from Pine Creek entirely. New signs went up around the neighborhood. Community review underway. HOA meetings open to the public. People finally started talking to each other instead of hiding behind complaint forms. As for me, I walked out to the pasture that morning, the same spot where the garbage had been dumped, and just stood there for a while. The grass was starting to grow back. A few wildflowers, too. Grace had helped me rake out the last of the tire tracks. We even planted a little apple sapling by the fence line. Her idea. Every queen falls, she said, but trees last longer. Smart kid. We didn't need headlines. Didn't need revenge speeches. We just needed that feel back. Clean. Quiet. Ours. Later that day, Marcus stopped by with a couple of lawn chairs and 2 cold root beers. You ever think about running for HOA? He joked. I laughed. Nah, I already fixed it. And I had. Not with anger. Not with threats. Just with truth, timing, and a trailer full of poetic justice.